Got more trash to throw near the trash can. Miss Fatty.
Oh,
Man,
that's really
some of my smocking. This is disorganized smocking. But you can like
that sounds like some sort of insult. Like you're just disorganized smocking.
oh burn. Like if I tuck them in like these, then suddenly you can see that they are little dragon scales.
I mean, I can't because it's very blurry. Oh, now I can. Okay.
Yeah. But I ended up not doing that for the most of Avi's vest because it would have taken 4 years. It looks so
Mm-hmm.
cool though. Dragon scale smocking. And I sort of invented that method because most dragon scale smocking that you see videos for, they have you smock all the way under so that there ends up being 3 layers of fabric in any spot and it's really tight and it's really well. So I invented a kind where it just folds under the edge and then goes out and that way you're not using thrice as much fabric as you
Mm-hmm.
have as
A little more flexible to wear too. We should
yeah.
make a tutorial at some point.
Someday. Except that's not really my milieu. I'm okay telling people how I done it, but I'm not very good at telling people how to do it.
I mean, fair enough. Fair enough.
Right.
Well, we have something very important that we need to consider, I have just realized as I was finding our spot in the book.
Uh-oh.
Because we are, hold up. We are this far from the end. There.
Well, I always read the timeline of future events concerning the Fellowship of the Ring.
Okay. Okay, so we have still a little bit of time. But even so, okay, we're 10 pages from the end of the like main text.
And then what?
And then what? What are we gonna do?
Well, we've got some options. One is the Silmarillion.
It, that does exist. Hmm.
um, I won't read the Children of Hurin aloud. That's too much crying.
Yeah, no, that's too depressing.
We could stop. I don't want to do
That that option also exists,
that. And it's also depressing.
and it's also depressing.
um, we could give Tolkien a break and read, I don't know, Hitchhiker's Guide or Good Omens or something, some other piece of literature that we both appreciate. Or a piece of literature that we don't appreciate yet. Jason's reading the Foundation trilogy, and I've told him I'd like to read that too, and we have it. But it's been years since I've delved into Asimov.
Yeah, I'm gonna not be into Asimov particularly. Um, I mean, we could always, we'll have to ponder because, yeah, I mean, we could always go back to our very old reading aloud roots and to the Merry Adventures of Robin Hood.
Ah, oh, I fucking love the Merry Adventures of Robin Hood. Oh,
It's
yeah.
public domain. If we ever had viewers, we could even monetize it.
Oh, wow. That would be awesome. Just in case there ever are viewers, so you know, we used to read this on road trips. There was a time in my teens when I wasn't car sick all the time. It was brief but wonderful. And when we did family trips, I would read Howard Pyle's Robin Hood, and Quinn would pipe up with the math. You would do the math.
I, there's a lot of scores in that book.
A lot of scores. Scores everywhere. Ah.
If I recall, there's also quite a bit to mock, what with them just fighting each other all the time for no reason.
getting their asses handed to. Yeah, no, that's a good one. We also other like classic literature, I think of it as classic literature options, include Last Unicorn and Never Ending Story.
Indeed.
Yeah. Which is well worth mocking. Not so much Last Unicorn, but Never Ending Story is extremely mockable. You know what I've discovered though? Le Guin isn't good for reading aloud.
Interesting. Which Le Guin?
I tried Earthsea for the kiddos and they didn't enjoy it because it's such an introspective prose,
Mm-hmm.
almost like a private prose. And if you're reading it aloud, it sounds kind of gauche and it sounds kind of like nothing happens.
I can see that.
Right? Yeah, it's all an inward journey. So Ged spending 7 months in a fishing village is like, when you're reading it to yourself, it's so interesting how where it goes from in there, and when you're reading it aloud, the kids are like, I don't get it. Something got lost.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm.
You know what I've never read, but I've heard is both somewhat mockable and also good is Frankenstein.
Yeah, I would read Frankenstein with you because I only read it once and Victor made me so fucking mad. I just wanted to shout at him all day.
That's what I've heard. I've heard he's a terrible fuckboy.
And even in the context of the book, which is written from the perspective of a sailor who worships him, even from his perspective, like they picked up this guy, this handsome, charming, erudite, very tight butted, educated guy, and I love him so much. And here is his story. And his story is, yeah, I'm a shit.
I'm sorry, I got distracted by you sliding tight butted in there in the middle. Charming, erudite, tight butted, educated. What was the third one?
It's certainly the overwhelming impression I got was that the young sailor was vastly impressed by our dude.
Well,
He had every reason to feel these ways and to do these things, and then you read about the things and you're like, no, he didn't.
Nope.
Yeah, positive spin on this boy.
You know what else we could? I'm on the classic literature like brain now. What else we could read? Treasure Island.
I love Treasure Island.
I don't know if I've ever read it.
Oh, yeah, we should do that.
Oh, we could.
Did you ever read all the Mowgli stories?
Yes, I have read the Mowgli stories.
I love the Mowgli stories too. There's a lot of books I love. We could do any of them. I'm cool. Be kind of weird to go from Lord of the Rings to Frankenstein, but it might be fun.
I mean, it might.
Yeah, we could go Frankenstein and then segue into Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and then Treasure Island, because like horror, Stevenson.
Perhaps.
I'm trying to think, because the reason we started reading aloud years ago, The Lord of the Rings, is because I couldn't get into it, and neither could you, right? Yeah. It was too dense. What else is so dense that it makes it better reading aloud?
Well, that is why I was going down the like vaguely Victorian path, is because I was like, that shit.
Fucking Dickens. We could attack Dickens, Pickwick Papers, or Oliver Twist, or one of those.
Yeah, but I don't know if I want to read Dickens.
Dickens was awesome, though. Even like you go, there's so many authors where you're like, well, this person was problematic. Dickens wasn't. He was like a fucking social justice warrior and shit. Like he kept writing about London's extreme poor because he was trying to to highlight the fact that these conditions really did exist and they were unconscionable and people should do something about it.
Well, it's not about who Dickens is. It's just I don't like his writing. Like, it's not a personal thing.
You know, it's how I've always felt about now I can't remember their name. 3 guys who rap. At least one of them's dead now. Couldn't stand their music, always loved their politics.
Oh, Beastie Boys.
That's it.
I often say that Dickens and the Beastie Boys have many similarities.
Obnoxiously wordy. Social justice warriors.
Well,
at this rate, it's going to take 2 weeks for us to finish those last 10 pages. So,
oh yeah, no, it's definitely going to take a couple of sessions. I just thought we should open up the topic, like
we should,
you know.
Yeah. Hey,
My brain
future
is like,
audience, leave your vote in the comments. I'm sure that the time is long over.
I was just thinking, like, but maybe we shouldn't, leave the fantasy genre because what if we lose our audience? And then I was like, what audience?
They'll follow us anywhere. You are loyal.
Yeah.
Yep. Abby requested a repeat of Lord of the Rings, so that's what I'm also reading upstairs. And we've made it as far as Treebeard's house, and we went and looked at just an internet image search for Welling Hall.
Mm-hmm.
No one's done it justice that we could find. Even I don't think John Howe or Alan Lee really paid much attention to it, and I'm like, Tolkien describes shit like he's describing it to an illustrator. Like the freaking when Treebeard gets home and pours the jugs of water and like says his private magic words, all the leaves on all the trees start glow, like the edges of the leaves glow, and then the trunks of the trees also glow. And the trunks are silver, and the leaves are edged in green or gold or copper, depending on the tree. And I'm like, that's the prettiest shit I've ever seen in my head. And no one's, well, that one calendar illustrator has attacked it, but even he didn't really like, it's kind of cursory.
Mm. That just sounds like a great use for gel pens to me.
Right.
I'm picturing the green and gold and copper gel pens that I have, that I had since middle school. And then I tested them all when I moved and was like, these are all dead.
I still have my set because it makes me happy to look at all the names we gave them. Come on. We gave them names. Hang on. Where are you? Mine is in a box that says eagles soar, but a weasel never gets sucked into a jet engine.
In most places I would think that would narrow it down, and yet in your art cave.
Hang on, I don't want to fall. Wait. Are you up here? Where are you? Oh, there's the markers. Ah, there you are.
Oh, that's going to be stuck in my head forever. Oh, those gel pens. Yeah. I was thinking of a different set, but I do remember that set.
Yes, and And we named them. This one was named Doc because so many of the blues were the same. We just gave them the names of the dwarfs. Grumpy.
Sure, sure.
Yep. But then we have like Persimmon and Who, and yeah, I don't have all of them clearly, but
Well, it has been 25 years.
it's been 25 years. I wonder if they work.
I'm gonna say probably not.
We're gonna try them out though. Hang on.
Well, okay, gross. Put the camera on it if you're gonna test them. We might as well make that our content for the day.
Shit! I dropped them. Ugh. All right, I tell you what. Wow. There's another box up there. I bet that's yours. I think you were going to get rid of it. And I was like, gimme.
I was thinking I had the same set.
Yep. Yours never got decorated. But is this your handwriting? Names. Oh, yeah. Cypress, periwinkle. Apparently we named something Quince.
Probably a pink, I would imagine.
Yep. So, I think you were like, I'm getting rid of these because they're dead. And I was like, the hell you are. And I took them.
I mean, I have had to move like 19 times since I had that set. So at some point things do sort of scatter.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, there's a diaspora of stuff. But just so you know, I've got it.
Well, I'm glad. And you have a lovely sample of my 14-year-old handwriting, and
it was very tidy.
And very small.
Yeah,
I fell out of that habit at some point.
So that might not be like a fair thingy comparison. Example.
No, it was small though, like very narrow.
Right? As were you. All of my fine tip Sharpies fell on the floor yesterday, so I'm going to grab those. You can start reading while I get cleaned up, and then I'll get the jellyfish going. Sound good?
Sounds good.
In fact, we can even... Whoa! If y'all want to be here while I work, you can be here while I work. Getting that table. Yeah, okay. I'll get this organized while you read, and then I'll do art.
Sounds lovely. All right. So they are cleaning up the mess after all of this stuff. The trees were the worst loss and damage, for at Sharky's bidding they had been cut down recklessly far and wide over the Shire, and Sam grieved over this more than anything else. For one thing, this hurt would take long to heal, and only his great-grandchildren, he thought, would see the Shire as it ought to be. Then suddenly one day, for he had been too busy for weeks to give a thought to his adventures, he remembered the gift of Galadriel. He brought the box out and showed it to the other travelers, for so they were now called by everyone, and asked their advice. "I wondered when you would think of it," said Frodo. "Open it." Inside it was filled with a grey dust, soft and fine, in the middle of which was a seed like a small nut with a silver shale. "What can I do with this?" said Sam. "Throw it in the air on a breezy day and let it do its work," said Pippin. "On what?" said Sam. "Choose one spot as a nursery and see what happens to the plants there," said Merry. "I'm sure the lady would not like me to keep it all for my own garden, now so many folk have suffered," said Sam. "Use all the wits and knowledge you have of your own, Sam," said Frodo, "and then use the gift to help your work and better it. And use it sparingly. There is not much here, and I expect every grain has a value." So Sam planted saplings in all the places where especially beautiful or beloved trees had been destroyed, and he put a grain of the precious dust in the soil at the root of each. He went up and down the Shire in this labor, but if he paid special attention to Hobbiton and Bywater, no one blamed him. At the end, he found that he had still a little of the dust left, so he went to the 3-farthing stone, which is as near the center of the Shire as no matter, and cast it in the air with his blessing. The little silver nut he planted in the party field where the tree had once been, and he wondered what would come of it. All through the winter he remained as patient as he could, and tried to restrain himself from going round constantly to see if anything was happening. That's very relatable. Every time I've ever planted anything. Like, can I just Totoro this shit? Spring surpassed his wildest hopes. His trees began to sprout and grow as if time was in a hurry and wished to make 1 year do for 20. In the party field, a beautiful young sapling leaped up. It had silver bark and long leaves, and burst into golden flowers in April. It was indeed a Malorn, and it was the wonder of the neighborhood. In after years, as it grew in grace and beauty, it was known far and wide, and people would come long journeys to see it. The only Malorn west of the mountains and east of the sea, and one of the finest in the world. Altogether,
so you hear people lamenting that no Malorn grows beyond Lorien, and it's because no one planted one, apparently.
Possibly, although Sam planted it with the blessing of Galadriel.
That's entirely, yeah.
Like, you have to wonder if, even if someone had gotten a bunch of Malorn seeds and planted them, like, would they grow if Galadriel wasn't on board?
Johnny Malorn seed.
Well, that's my new drag name.
And the half a dozen people who get it will be like, ah, nice.
I feel like the overlap of people that would watch a drag show that I put on and people that would get Tolkien is actually pretty circular.
Yeah. I dig.
Granted, that still might be half a dozen, but you know what? Altogether, 1420 in the Shire was a marvelous year. Not only was there wonderful sunshine and delicious rain, in due times in perfect measure, but there seemed something more, an air of richness and growth, and a gleam of a beauty beyond that of mortal summers, that flicker and pass upon this middle earth. All the children born or begotten in that year, and there were many, were fair to see and strong, and most of them had a rich golden hair that had been before rare among hobbits. The fruit was so plentiful.
Galadriel genes are taking over the Shire.
Yeah, you do. Okay, if the magic dust makes the children blonde, you do have to wonder if there's like what is in the dust exactly, Galadriel?
Right.
How
would you say your blessing?
Could you be specific? Or perhaps not, actually. Perhaps it's better not to know.
Right.
It's like the elves have left Middle Earth, except all those hobbits that Galadriel kind of knocked up.
And they've got blonde hair, which begs the question, okay, so that a little rural community where a bunch of children are mysteriously born blonde is the plot of the Children of the
Corn?
Not the Corn, but the Damned. Oh. Or Village of the Damned. It was called Village of the Damned. Yeah.
The kids were blonde in Children of the Corn too, weren't they?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
No, they were just in cornfields. You were picturing corn with corn blonde kids, but no, they were just Stephen King children. Type.
Also, if I was like a hobbit and all of a sudden like all the kids were blonde mysteriously, I might be wondering like what sort of blonde person might have traveled through the Shire.
Well, it was Johnny Malorn seed, of course.
Yeah, the Matlorn seed is a metaphor.
Oh, I don't actually want this.
All right. The fruit was so plentiful that young hobbits very nearly bathed in strawberries and cream. And later they sat on the lawns under the plum trees and ate until they had made piles of stones like small pyramids or the heaped skulls of a conqueror. And then they moved on.
I love
So-
that metaphor. Well, simile. I fucking love it. Like, oh, it's so benign. Like the heaped skulls of a conqueror. That's someone who understands childhood.
Yeah. I also just got ruled, but like mentally, because I was thinking we used to do that when we were kids, and then we would get terribly sick to our stomachs from eating all that much fruit
Yep.
and have many regrets. And then the next sentence is, and no one was ill, and everyone was pleased except those who had to mow the
Who had
grass.
to mow the grass. Yeah, because everything's growing at 20 years per year. So you'd mow it and you'd go look outside the next morning and be like, oh.
Like, can I just leave it? No, because we'll lose the children.
Pardon me.
In the South Farthing, the vines were laden, and the yield of leaf was astonishing. Leaf is in quotes, by the way, which I know it's not pot, but that's really funny. The yield of leaf was great.
Right. Okay. Okay, Johnny.
And everywhere there was so much corn that at harvest every barn was stuffed. The North Farthing barley was so fine that the beer of 1420 malt was long remembered and became a byword. Indeed, a generation later one might hear an old gaffer in an inn, after a good pint of well-earned ale, put down his mug with a sigh. Ah, that was proper 1420, that was.
We really should get that into common parlance today. It'll be such a deep cut.
It would be a very deep cut, but people would get it confused with 420.
It's true. In fact, leaf 1420. Never mind.
I can see you developing a conspiracy theory. Have fun with that.
Nuh-uh. How dare.
Sam stayed first at the Cottons with Frodo, but when the new row was ready, he went with the gaffer. In addition to all his other labors, he was busy directing the cleaning up and restoring of Bag End. But he was often away in the Shire on his forestry work, so he was not at home in early March, and did not know that Frodo had been ill. On the 13th of that month, Farmer Cotton found Frodo lying on his bed. He was clutching a white gem that hung on a chain about his neck, and he seemed half in a dream. "It is gone forever," he said, "and now all is dark and empty." But the fit passed, and when Sam got back on the 25th, Frodo had recovered, and he said nothing about himself. In the meanwhile, Bag End had been set in order, and Merry and Pippin came over from Crickhollow, bringing back all the old furniture and gear, so that the old hole soon looked very much as it had always done. When all was at last ready,
why. Now, wasn't that clever? Because he's like, okay, I need Bag End to be ruined, but I need it to be recoverable. So I'm going to put all this stuff.
Move all the stuff to Crickhollow.
Yeah.
When all was at last ready, Frodo said, "When are you going to move in and join me, Sam?" Sam looked a bit awkward. You know, when your boyfriend gets a little clingy and you hadn't really thought about moving in together. "There's no need to come yet if you don't want to," said Frodo. "But you know the gaffer is close at hand, and he will be very well looked after by Widow Rumble." Nudge, nudge. Wink, wink.
Good old Widow Rumble.
"It's not that, Mr. Frodo," said Sam, and he went very red. "Well, what is it?" "It's Rosie, Rose Cotton," said Sam. It seems she didn't like my going abroad at all, poor lass, but as I hadn't spoken, she couldn't say so. And I didn't speak because I had a job to do first. But now I have spoken, and she says, well, you've wasted a year, so why wait longer? Wasted, I says. I wouldn't call it that. Still, I see what she means. I feel torn in two, as you might say. I see, said Frodo. You want to get married, and yet you want to live with me in Bag End too. But my dear Sam, how easy! Get married as soon as you can, and then move in with Rosie. There's room enough in Bag End for as big a family as you could wish for.
Move in with Rosie.
Yes.
Not move in with Rosie.
Yeah, no, bring Rosie, move in.
Yep. And this gives me the excuse to say they're fantasy fiction's original polycule.
They really are, like, and I love Sam being like, oh, I'm torn in two because I want to marry this girl, but I want to live with my boyfriend. And then Frodo's just like, you have two hands. What's the problem?
And, you know, I get why they skipped the scouring for the movie, but they really should have had Sam coming home to Bag End, even if they weren't going to explain that to the movie-going audience. Because it does make sense. Bag End is large. Like, people, they can have a big old family with 13 kids, which they do. But, damn it.
And so it was settled. Sam Gamgee married Rose Cotton in the spring of 1420, which was also famous for its weddings, and they came and lived at Bag End. And if Sam thought himself lucky, Frodo knew that he was more lucky himself, for there was not a hobbit in the Shire that was looked after with such care. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
I like to imagine the conversations Frodo and Rosie have, you know?
Yep.
I like to picture their dynamic too.
I feel like Rosie would be such a good influence for Frodo because she wasn't there. She doesn't care. She's just going along being like, yeah, so we should probably air the mattresses, and and Frodo's getting off in his like angsty memories, and she's just like, would you like a cup of tea?
Right? And you know that she's so pragmatic and like down to earth that if he wants to go off in a fit of despondency, she'll be like, sure, but let me pack you a lunch.
Exactly.
Like, I'll cover for you because you know Sam will worry, and we don't want that, do we? So
Yeah. Yeah, and if he's gonna wander around when the oldest kids are old enough, she's like, well, take Tom Jr. with you. I don't know why I said junior. He wouldn't be a junior, but take young Tom with you. He'll see you back safe.
I think Tom is about the only name they didn't give any of their children.
Well, we haven't read that bit yet, so we'll get there.
Fine, let's get there. Take young Eleanor with you.
When the labors of repair had all been planned and set going, he took to a quiet life, writing a great deal and going through all his notes. He resigned the office of deputy mayor at the Free Fair that midsummer, and dear old Will Whitfoot had another 7 years of presiding at banquets. Merry and Pippin lived together for some time at Crick Hollow, and there was much coming and going between Buckland and Bag End.
Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. Nudge, nudge. The two young travelers had a great dash in the Shire with their songs and their tales and their finery and their wonderful parties. Yeah, that's pretty gay.
Fuck yeah.
Lordly, folk called them, meaning nothing but good, for it warmed all hearts to see them go riding by with their mail shirts so bright and their shields so splendid, laughing and singing songs of far away. And if they were now large and magnificent, they were unchanged otherwise, unless they were indeed more fair-spoken and more jovial and full of merriment than ever before.
See,
Frodo,
you don't have to be just angsty all the time.
Look, he's got PTSD. He's allowed to have some angst.
Yeah. I mean, so do they, but they don't have the same kind.
Yeah, it's a little different.
It's a little different.
Frodo and Sam, however, went back to ordinary attire, except that when there was need, they both wore long gray cloaks, finely woven, and clasped at the throat with beautiful brooches. And Mr. Frodo wore always a white jewel on a chain that he often would finger. All things now went well, with hope always of becoming still better, and Sam was as busy and as full of delight as even a hobbit could wish. Nothing for him marred that whole year, except for some vague anxiety about his master. Frodo dropped quietly out of all the doings of the Shire, and Sam was pained to notice how little honor he had in his own country. Few people knew or wanted to know about his deeds and adventures. Their admiration and respect were given mostly to Mr. Meriadoc and Mr. Peregrine, and, if Sam had known it, to himself. Also in the autumn there appeared a shadow of old troubles. One evening Sam came into the study and found his master looking very strange. He was very pale, and his eyes seemed to see things far away. "What's the matter, Mr. Frodo?" said Sam. "I am wounded," he answered. "Wounded. It will never really heal." But then he got up, and the turn seemed to pass, and he was quite himself the next day. It was not until afterwards that Sam recalled that the date was October the 6th. 2 years before on that day, it was dark in the dell under Weathertop.
Yep.
Time.
I said, yep.
Yep. At least they're spaced out a bit. He has like his The Ring is Gone breakdown in March, and then he has his Stabbed on Weathertop breakdown in October.
Right? But what do they call that? The annual revisiting of a wound? I can't remember what it's called.
An anniversary, I guess? I don't really know.
Yeah, but there's a special term for it that includes, it's like traumaversary or something.
I don't know it.
Okay.
Time went on, and 1421 came in. Frodo was ill again in March, but with a great effort he concealed it, for Sam had other things to think about. The first of Sam and Rosie's children was born on the 25th of March, a date that Sam noted. "Well, Mr. Frodo," he said.
Date? Do you know what happened on that date?
No.
The ring was destroyed on the 25th.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay.
"Well, Mr. Frodo," he said, "I'm in a bit of a fix. Rose and me had settled to call him Frodo, with your leave. But it's not him, it's her. Though as pretty a maid child as anyone could hope for, taking after Rose more than me, luckily. So we don't know what to do." "Well, Sam," said Frodo, "what's wrong with the old customs? Choose a flower name like Rose. Half the maid children in the Shire are called by such names, and what could be better?" "I suppose you're right, Mr. Frodo," said Sam. "Heard some beautiful names on my travels, but I suppose they're a bit too grand for daily wear and tear, as you might say. The gaffer, he says, make it short, and then you won't have to cut it short before you can use it. But if it's to be a flower name, then I don't trouble about the length. It must be a beautiful flower, because you see, I think she is very beautiful, and is going to be beautifuler still." Frodo thought for a moment. "Well, Sam, what about Elenor, the Sun Star? You remember the little golden flower in the grass of Lothlorien?" "You're right again, Mr. Frodo," said Sam, delighted. "That's what I wanted." Little Elenor was nearly 6 months old, and 1421 had passed to its autumn when Frodo
Kid,
called Sam into the study.
Kid, you are this close to being named Nifredil.
We call that dodging a bullet. Frodo called Sam into the study. "It will be Bilbo's birthday on Thursday, Sam," he said, "and he will pass the old Took. He will be 131. "So he will," said Sam. "He's a marvel." "Well, Sam," said Frodo, "I want you to see Rose and find out if she can spare you, so that you and I can go off together. You can't go far or for a long time now, of course," he said, a little wistfully. Well, not very well, Mr. Frodo. Of course not. But never mind, you can see me on my way. Tell Rose that you won't be away very long, not more than a fortnight, and you'll come back quite safe.
2 weeks
I
is
wish.
not that long.
Hmm?
2 weeks is not that long.
Well, I mean, at that point they've only got one kid, so
Right?
if they had all 13, Rosa would be like, no,
No.
absolutely not.
Fuck you.
I wish I could go all the way with you to Rivendell, Mr. Frodo, and see Mr. Bilbo, said Sam. And yet, the only place I really want to be in is here. I'm that torn in two. Poor Sam. It will feel like that, I'm afraid, said Frodo. But you will be healed. You were meant to be solid and whole, and you will be. That's like very ominous. If someone said that to me, I'd be like, "What? What are you doing?
What are you?
Where are you
Yeah.
going?
Um.
You're making predictions about my life as if you're not going to be around for it, and I'm very concerned."
I'm not okay with that. Yeah.
In the next day or two, Frodo went through his papers and his writings with Sam, and he handed over his keys. There was a big book with plain red leather covers. Its tall pages were now almost filled. At the beginning there were many leaves covered with Bilbo's thin, wandering hand, but most of it was written in Frodo's firm, flowing script. Things that are not easy to say, thanks, Tolkien.
Right.
It was divided into chapters, but chapter 80 was unfinished, and after that there were some blank leaves. The title page had many titles on it, crossed out one after the other, so My Diary, My Unexpected Journey, There and Back Again, and What Happened After, Adventures of Five Hobbits, The Tale of the Great Ring, compiled by Bilbo Baggins from his own observations and the accounts of his friends, What We Did in the War of the Ring. Here Bilbo's hand ended, and Frodo had written, The Downfall of the Lord of the Rings, and the Return of the King, as seen by the Little People, being the memoirs of Bilbo and Frodo of the Shire, supplemented by the accounts of their friends and the learning of the wise, together with extracts from books of lore translated by Bilbo in Rivendell. That is such a long fucking title.
It's a fucking textbook. It was never meant to be read for fun. And he makes that very clear. It's a fucking it sounds like the title of a thesis.
It is a thesis.
Like, this is how I got my doctorate.
This is how I got my doctorate in trauma.
And Bilbo's all like, I need short, snappy title. And he tries 9 and crosses them all out. And Frodo's like, no. What you need is 9 short, snappy titles all at once.
My favorite, in the sense that it is definitely the worst, I think, is What We Did in the War of the Ring. What I did on my summer vacation, but terrible.
Right. What I did on my holidays. Yeah. The Tale of Five Hobbits is also very not quite right.
Yep. Yeah, not great. On September the 21st, they set out together, Frodo on the pony that had borne him all the way from Minas Tirith and was now called Strider, and Sam on his beloved Bill. It was a fair golden morning, and Sam did not ask where they were going. He thought he could guess. They took the stock road over the hills and went towards the woody end, and they let the ponies walk at their leisure. They camped in the green hills, and on September the 22nd they rode gently down into the beginning of the trees as afternoon was wearing away. That isn't the very tree you hid behind when the Black Rider first showed up, Mr. Frodo, said Sam, pointing to the left. Seems like a dream now. It was evening, and the stars were glimmering in the eastern sky as they passed the ruined oak and turned on down the hill between the hazel thickets. Sam was silent deep in his memories. Presently he became aware that Frodo was singing softly to himself, singing the old walking song, but the words were not quite the same. Still round the corner there may wait a new road or a secret gate, and though I oft have passed them by, a day will come at last when I shall take the hidden paths that run, west of the moon, east of the sun. And I think that's where we're going to leave it for today.
Right? Oh, man. Nah. Wait, did I flip it again? No, it's fine. Okay.
They look great.
Thank you. But I did the original one a couple weeks ago on this side and didn't realize that I'd accidentally flipped it over.
Oops.
So one of these is on the wrong side of the plastic. And these other plastics I'm going to have to clean, otherwise they'll just obscure the hell out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll work if they're clean. We'll find out. Ah!
Did something smear?
I don't think so, but I was eyeing in preparation for discovering that, yes. No, we're fine.
Good.
No.
I really like the Art Nouveau jellyfishness of it all. Like that's hitting a good spot in my brain.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be an artwork about hurting, but I need it to be a dichotomy of like beautiful Art Nouveau and also guess what it means.
Sure.
Yeah. We'll get there. It'll be fun. And it'll go in the box like so.
For some reason, the way you said "go in the box," my brain went to
What's
Avengers.
in the box? Oh, what?
No, my brain went to what that one Avengers episode where they switch partners with the Russians. And how do you feel? Like someone who has been tied up and put in a box.
Oh man, we've got to watch those again sometime. I miss them. I've got all the Emma Peel episodes. I just hardly ever watch them because who watches media that they own anymore?
Well, perhaps sometime soon we should do that. Actually, hang out for a sec because I remembered I forgot to tell you something, but we need to end the stream first. So,
okay.
Goodbye, people who might be watching someday.
Goodbye, future historians.